Hi, this is Jeff Cate with SharePoint Solutions, and I'm the designer and instructor for our new course on the Microsoft Self-Service BI Toolset. This is a relatively new set of tools for Microsoft, and it's very exciting, especially for business professionals who have grown tired of lengthy traditional business intelligence projects that oftentimes come up short. The toolset includes 4 tools from Microsoft: PowerPivot for Excel and SharePoint, SQL Reporting Services Power View, SQL Reporting Services Report Builder, and SharePoint 2010 Enterprise Edition, or the 2013 edition of SharePoint, which has just come out. And really, SharePoint is the glue that makes this system work together. This video is in a series where I explain what the Self-Service BI is all about. And in this particular video, I give an end-to-end demonstration of what the experience is from the perspective of the business professional. To create this video and to create our new course, one of the things that has helped me is a great book that's on the market called Visualizing Data with Microsoft Power View. It's by Brian Larson. This is an excellent book. It certainly describes SQL Reporting Services Power View in a good amount of detail, but it also covers PowerPivot for Excel and PowerPivot for SharePoint, and it gives detailed instructions on how to set up a SharePoint 2010 environment to test out the self-service BI features. You can purchase this book on Amazon.com, and I encourage you to do that if you're interested in this subject. And for in-depth, hands-on training, I encourage you to attend our class. So what you're going to see in this video is some of the lab work that we do in our class. Now let's move on to the demo. We've got a case study company, and you're looking at their company intranet. It's Pangeo Hospitality and Travel. Right there on their homepage, they tell you a little bit about the company. They have about 1,000 hotel properties, and they want to be constantly monitoring the performance of the properties and seeking to make improvements, and particularly at ones that are underperforming. They're interested in knowing what hotels in what countries aren't doing well, and they either want to improve those hotels or they want to shut them down. And they also are interested in global tourism trends. And so they'd like to have data that they could look at and compare to hotel performance to give them a feel for how tourism spending is trending around the world. That might help them know how best to invest their dollar. Now, Pangeo has also decided that they want to implement Microsoft Self-Service BI, and they've looked around and looked for a department that would be a good candidate, take the first crack or to be the beta for the new Self-Service BI tools, and they've settled on the marketing team. And in marketing, we have Jade, who is the VP of Marketing, and working for Jade is Dennis, and he's a marketing analyst. And Dennis is a very Excel-savvy business professional. He's used Excel for years. He's done a lot of analysis for Jade. He's what you would term as an Excel jock. Jade likes relying on Dennis. She likes the fact that he's very Excel-savvy, but she's really more interested in the big picture. She likes designing, coming up with designs for graphs and charts that can be presented at management meetings to try to explain what's going on with marketing. But she relies on Dennis to really be her number cruncher. And Dennis loves Excel, but Dennis has, over the years, he's really been frustrated at times with some of the shortcomings, especially when it comes to using Excel as a BI tool. For one thing, he's run into the million-row limit in Excel. He's a very capable pivot table creator, but he frequently has lots of data that he needs to crunch, and of course Excel has been limited by about 1 million rows. So Dennis has heard about these new features, in particular PowerPivot for Excel, and the fact that it can handle up to hundreds of millions of rows of data, and so he's really excited to understand what that's all about and dive in and use PowerPivot to create a platform both he and Jay can use to create new reports and dashboards. So there's some specific business questions that the marketing team is looking at to answer, and here's several on the list. In particular, if we notice here, second bullet point, they're looking to find out where their year-over-year growth problems are in Argentina, Chile, and Peru. So they have some very specific countries in mind, and they're looking for hotels there that may not be doing well, and that they can make some recommendations for improvement or to perhaps close those hotels down. Now, Dennis has been very familiar and has had his hands down into the data at Pangeo for a long time, and he knows that he's got data out there that he can connect to. He has friends in IT that will help him understand how to connect to data if he doesn't know, but he's very familiar with the fact that the company has a pretty standard relational database structure, and that he's got read-only access to a lot of that data. For instance, the master hotel chains table, the master hotels table, and then all the financial data and customer ratings data for these hotels around the world. He also knows that he can go out to the United Nations tourism database, and he can pull tourism data by year, by country. So Dennis has got a pretty good idea that he's got data out there that he can get his hands on and pull into PowerPivot for Excel. He just needs to get started with it. And Dennis's number one question is, okay, how do I get started? And this, to a certain degree, is Jade's as well, but she's delegating the first part of this project to Dennis. So the first thing, all BI projects, whether they're self-service or traditional projects, start with business people knowing what questions or having an idea of what questions they need answered. Second step in the process is to locate and understand the data that is needed. We already just took a look at some of the data that is available at Pangeo and that Dennis has permissions to access and to analyze. So in his case, he'll be pulling in a lot of data from relational databases. Sometimes business professionals need to be able to get to other types of data, such as data that exists in SharePoint lists or spreadsheets or web service data. But in Pangeo's case, Dennis knows that his will all come out of some relational data. Then the next step is to create a PowerPivot model, and this is done with plug into Excel, and Dennis will be doing this part of the job. He'll create the model, he'll pull the data in, he'll do some massaging, some manipulating of the data, create some calculated fields, some things called measures. And once he has it all finished, the model will be saved as an Excel workbook, so just a standard .xlsx file, and that will be available then to use as a data model. And off of that data model, reports and dashboards can be created with a new tool that comes with SQL Server 2012 called Power View. And that's a pretty exciting tool, and it is highly visual, and it's geared towards the end user, the business user, a tool that they can use to develop really visual reports and dashboards. And that's something that Jade is very excited. And then finally, the Power View reports and dashboards can be stored within SharePoint, so we can go full circle. Dennis can create the PowerPivot model, the Power View reports can be stored in SharePoint, and other users can benefit from the work that Jade and Dennis have done. So now Pangeo has created a new site off of their SharePoint intranet called the Self-Service Reporting site. And the intent here is that this is where business professionals would go to both consume and author new reports. And of course, back to our 5-step process, before we can author or consume any reports in the self-service reporting site, we need to create a PowerPivot model. That's the first step, and that's not done in SharePoint, that's done with Excel. So we've already created a PowerPivot model because it would take Dennis several hours to create in the real world. We've already done that work, but we're going to take a look at the model that Dennis has created so that you have an idea of what the PowerPivot model is all about. So here we have our finished Pangeo data model that Dennis has completed. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet. It's going to open like an Excel spreadsheet in Excel. But notice that the file is about 18 megabytes inside, so quite a large Excel file. But let's go ahead and open this up. Excel 2010 starts up. And one thing that Dennis has done is right here on the only worksheet open, he's labeled it, he's just put in some text here that says this is a PowerPivot data model. It'll become more clear later why this was probably a good idea for Dennis to do. But notice if you look at the tabs across the bottom of the workbook, there's only one worksheet so far in this workbook, and it's the one that's labeled data model, and it's really essentially an empty spreadsheet. So where is the 18 megabytes of data that we saw is apparently contained in this file? Well, the answer is that this instance of Excel, we've downloaded and installed the PowerPivot plugin. So there's a tab here that says PowerPivot. If we click on that tab, we see items in the Office 2010 ribbon. And one of the things we can click on here is to open up the PowerPivot window. And the PowerPivot add-on is a free add-on. It can be downloaded from Microsoft's download site. All you have to have is Excel 2010, and we'll give this a minute to load. And once it loads, we're looking at the PowerPivot window. It looks very much Excel-like. If we look down at the bottom in the PowerPivot window, we see that we've got tabs, and we can browse through the different tabs here. And each tab represents a data source that has been pulled in to PowerPivot. So for instance, we can come over and we see there's a financial tab. And when we click on the financial tab, we see rows and columns and plus some other things down here. And we see that if we look down at the bottom here, we're sitting on row 1 of 288,000 rows. So 288,000 rows of financial data have been pulled into this PowerPivot for Excel workbook. And we can see some columns that look like they have database field names with values in them. And then down underneath this line here, we see something called the measures area. And if we click in one of those, we can see that a formula has been entered. In this case, we're calculating total revenue, and total revenue is the sum of this revenue column. So Dennis started by importing data into this PowerPivot for Excel model, and you can see quickly here that there's a table import wizard, and there's quite a few different types of data sources that PowerPivot can import data from. We can get it from numerous relational database management systems. We can, if we have OLADB or ODBC database drivers, we can use that. We can pull in data from Microsoft Analysis Services or SAS. We can pull in data from Excel and text file, as well as web services here in the data feed category. So lots of different options for pulling data into PowerPivot for analysis. And so Dennis did that part of the job already. The other big thing Dennis did, besides pulling the data in, and he obviously has created some measures or calculated fields, the other thing that he did was he related the data, and we can see that by going to diagram view. And in diagram view, we can see that there appear to be multiple tables here. We can see fields for each table, and we can see lines connecting the tables, so we have relationships here. So Dennis came in and related the data. He found fields, for instance, in the tourism table, that he found a common field with the date table, and he created a relationship with just a simple drag and drop option. So in essence, what we have with PowerPivot for Excel is a specialized database creation tool that feels very much like Excel. It's oriented towards the business professionals to use it and to be able to create data models. And anyone like Dennis, who is a real Excel jock, is really going to take to PowerPivot for Excel and is going to find that they can pull in large quantities of data quickly, massage that data, and put it into a data model that then can be made available for other less technical business professionals to use to create Power View reports. And that's what we're going to do next. So Dennis has his model finished, and we're just going to close this out without saving. So his model is this finished Pangeo data model file, and it's 18 megabytes in size. And so now let's go back to SharePoint, and Dennis wants to upload this model to SharePoint, and we've created a special library called PowerPivot Data Models here. So he comes here and he goes to Documents, and he goes Upload a Document, and he's gonna find the finished Pangeo data model document, and then click OK to get the upload starting. And because this is a document like any other document, we can do things like assign metadata values to this document. And so one of the things we've done here is create a custom column called Data Sources, and we've used Manage Metadata in SharePoint 2010. And if we knew that this data was coming out of a particular system, so for instance, let's say that it's coming out of the point of sale system at the hotels, we could select that, add that, and then we've categorized this by using a piece of metadata. We're saying that this particular data model, the originating source of the data, was the point of sale systems. So we'll save that. And immediately we see a sort of a special view here in SharePoint. This is called a PowerPivot gallery view. It's nice. We'll look at this in a little more detail here in a few minutes, but you can see in general that you get to see thumbnail images of any PowerPivot workbook that you've uploaded, and also thumbnail images of Power View report. And we see a little hourglass. It's still finishing up capturing that thumbnail image, but that doesn't keep us from continuing on. So now Jade has said, I want to develop a particular visualization or a particular graph that helps us analyze what's going on in the country of Argentina. What are our hotels doing in Argentina? How are they performing in Argentina? Because that was one of her key business questions. Dennis has uploaded this data model, and now Jade can use it to develop visualizations or charts or reports off this data model. And it's real easy for her to do. She just comes to this library and she hovers over here, and there's 3 icons, and one of those is Create Power View Report. And so that's what she wants to do. She wants to use the data in this model to create a Power View report to answer her business question. So when she clicks on Create Power View Report, a new Microsoft tool that ships with SQL Server 2012 called Power View loads, and that's what we're looking here is the design surface in Power View. And if you remember, Jade's question is what is going on with the hotels in Argentina? Which ones are performing poorly? Of course, she'd probably also like to know which ones are performing well, but in particular, she's wanting to focus in on poor performing hotels in Argentina so she can make recommendations about improvement or can possibly shut those hotels down. So one of the things that Jade's going to want to look at is year-over-year growth in revenue. So that's going to show Jade whether a particular hotel is growing and by what percentage that it's growing. So Jade looks at the Power View design surface here. She's had some very basic training, and she knows that over on the right is the data that she has available to use in her analysis. She knows here in the middle that she has a design surface that she can add data elements to, and so it's pretty much a point and click operation. And so she's going to go ahead and get started with this by expanding out the financial group of data up here, and she immediately sees a list of data fields that she can choose from. And she knows that down here at the bottom is a year-over-year % growth total revenue field, and so she clicks on that. And when she does that, that field is added down here to something called the field well. It's also added over here in a table format. It shows 0%, and that's because without any other filtering by country or hotel or by year, can't really produce a meaningful number there. So we need to keep working in order to get the report into the format that we need. So she's going to use year-over-year % growth total revenue. That's going to tell her whether a particular hotel, how fast it's growing in terms of revenue. And she knows that she wants to only see hotels in Argentina. So we need some type of filter here. And Power View makes it very easy to add a filter. So we're going to go over here to the Home tab. We're going to click on the filter, and that exposes a filter area here. And we see that we have country data in the field list over here. So we're going to drag the country data over here to the filter area, and immediately see a list of all the countries that we have in our data. And we know in particular that we're interested in just looking at Argentina. So we're going to filter by Argentina. Still didn't make any change in our table over here, but we're going to add more data, and we're going to see that we can quickly flesh this thing out. So what Jade's ultimate goal here would be to see a column chart where this data x-axis could be year. So if we click on the table over here, and we go back to the Design tab and we select Column Chart, Then this table just immediately changes into a column chart visualization. Still don't see any columns, but that's okay. We'll fix that in just a second. With the table selected, because it's now a column chart, some new items have opened up here, and we have in particular an axis well here and a series well. And so what we're going to do, because we know we want year on the x-axis, is find the date table and drag year down to the axis. Now it's starting to look better. So what do I have now? Well, I know I have only Argentina because I've got that over in my filter, and I'm getting a column for every year since from 1998 through 2011, and its scale here is a percentage. So this is showing me that, for instance, in the year 2004, if I hover over this, I see that I had an 18.2% growth in revenue over the prior year. This is just for hotels in Argentina, but it doesn't tell me specifically which hotels, and that's really the next thing that we need to add to our chart. So with the chart selected, we have an option in the tool called Tile By. And Tile By means that we can drag hotel name down to Tile By. And now the visualization immediately changes, and what it's done is it's taken the chart, the column chart, and it's encapsulated it, or it's put it inside a tile container. And this tile container, if we size this out a little bit here, the tile container is going to show us hotels across the top. So if I select this hotel, this is the Grand Elegance Hotel in Buenos Aires, I get an idea of year-over-year growth trends for that hotel. Now if I select the Great Stay Motel, which is also in Buenos Aires, I see that that hotel has been doing poorly all the way back since 1998 and continues to do poorly. So that looks like a candidate for closing. Happy Tourist Hotel also looks pretty poor. If we skip over here, then we start getting back into some hotels that are showing that they have positive trends. And here's a hotel, the Knockabout Motel in Buenos Aires, that has an interesting situation. Some years it has not grown in revenue. In fact, it's had negative growth in revenue. Other years it's had positive. It looks like 2011 it had a turnaround and grew in revenue. So this might be an example of a hotel where we want to try to make some improvements, whereas the Great Stay Motel in Buenos Aires looks like it just needs to be closed. So Jade has very quickly come up with a visualization that she can use to analyze performance of hotels in a particular country. And she's going to name this report and she's going to close out the filter area here, and then she's going to save this report. And then once it's saved, she can simply click the back button and now her report is here within SharePoint. I actually intended to save it in a different library. I wasn't paying enough attention, but because this is a Power View report and because we're using this nice PowerPivot gallery library template, we get a nice visual thumbnail here, and other users now can come in and benefit off of the work that Jade and Dennis have done. Remember, Dennis created the data model, Jay's created the first visualization or report, and other users that have read access to this SharePoint library can come in and benefit by consuming, by clicking here, and consuming this interactive report that Jade and Dennis have prepared and published to SharePoint. A really nice full screen mode capability as well that really brings out, helps you focus in. So this is just one quick example of the kind of things that organizations are able to do using the new Microsoft Self-Service BI tools. Hopefully you can see how this really empowers business professionals to do more things on their own and get answers to their business questions faster. I hope this short video has helped you understand what Microsoft Self-Service BI is all about. I trust that you also have started to gain an appreciation for its potential and the tremendous value it can bring to organizations. I encourage you to consider attending our in-depth instructor-led training class on Microsoft Self-Service BI. In the 3-day class, you will have your own dedicated lab machine, an outstanding instructor, and high-quality, custom-developed course materials all put together to make sure you maximize your learning experience. We teach this course on a rotating basis at our physical locations in Chicago, Dallas, Nashville, and Washington, D.C. For students that are not local to one of these cities or can't easily travel, we also offer a convenient live online remote attendance option regardless of which city the class is currently being held. The URL at the bottom of this slide will take you directly to the course outline page where you can read all of the details about this course. If you have questions, don't hesitate to email us at training@sharepointsolutions.com or call us at area code 615-515-0210, option 2. Thanks for watching, and I hope I get to see you in class.